The man who led authorities on a manhunt in East Missoula says he wanted to die by cop.
DNA tests that used to cost thousands of dollars are now only hundreds, but are they reliable?
And the world's longest zip line gives guests a thrilling ride at top speeds of nearly 100 miles per hour.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Dennis Bragg.
And I'm Jill Valley. A former Florence doctor convicted on more than 20 counts, including negligent homicide for the deaths of 2 patients, will learn his punishment tomorrow.
Dr. Chris Christensen was found guilty during a month-long trial last fall, the culmination of a raid and investigation into his Florence clinic that dates back nearly 4 years. Christensen originally faced hundreds of charges of overprescribing and misprescribing drugs for the deaths of 2 patients. Those charges were consolidated for the trial, but Christensen still faces penalties that total more than 400 years in jail and fines that could go as high as $50,000. Judge Jeffrey Langton will preside over Christensen's hearing, which is set to get underway at 9 in the morning in Ravalli County District Court. The woman who claims she's the wife of the man accused in this week's manhunt in East Missoula says they were both prepared to die that day.
35-year-old William Newhoff appeared in Missoula Justice Court this afternoon. He is charged with 5 felonies, including theft, criminal endangerment, criminal mischief, and burglary. This all started just after 9:30 in the morning Tuesday when the U.S. Marshals and deputies tried to arrest Newhoff, who was wanted on an outstanding federal warrant of trying to avoid arrest. Newhoff ran away from authorities, leading them on a chase through East Missoula, eventually crashing into a house and then a tree. He then hid in a trailer, and that's when authorities caught up with him. A corporal pointed his gun at Newhoff and commanded him to show his hands. Now, Newhoff initially ignored those orders, but later dropped his gun. Authorities directed Newhoff to step out of the doorway, but he said, "Just shoot me." Officers were able to detain Newhoff and take him into custody without firing a gun. Today in court, a woman claiming to be Newhoff's wife says she stands by her husband. She claims she has cancer and their plan was to die together.
My husband's not a monster. He was armed, or they say he was possibly, or whatever. My husband acted on a faith love. Not because he was on drugs, not because he was drunk, not because he just wanted to be a criminal. My husband turned around to come and get me. He wasn't trying to hurt nobody. He was coming to get his wife. We want to die together.
Newhoff's bail was set at $150,000.
Former Van CEO George Manlove is asking for his conviction on more than 100 counts in a federal fraud case to be overturned, arguing he was denied a fair trial because of prosecutors' questions. Manlove was convicted last year on 170 counts after the trial in U.S. District Court in Missoula. He was implicated on charges of stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars through fraud, money laundering, and other crimes while he was the CEO of the Missoula-based retailer. The company would eventually file for bankruptcy. Now Manlove's attorney is taking the case to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, arguing prosecutors were allowed to use calculated, sustained, and improper use of leading questions during the trial, especially with co-defendant Paul Nesbitt on the stand. Defense attorney Daniel Donovan complains that prevented the defense team from weighing the credibility of Nesbitt's testimony against Manlove. Manlove has been serving a 5-year sentence that started last summer. Turning now to weather, expect more active conditions heading into the weekend. Here we go. Winter weather advisory is about to take effect. Let's check in now with Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost for the latest. Aaron?
Now, those advisories go into effect in about an hour here now as we see a northwesterly flow ushering in our next disturbance. That could make for a slick morning commute tomorrow, including places like this, Hamilton, our First Security Bank ICAM. Although we're not expecting a ton of snowfall, it is going to be enough to make for some slick roadways, especially for the Flathead Mission valleys out of the whole Highway 93 corridor. Right now, the radar slowly starting to fill in. There's more of where that came from overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Here's a look at where those winter weather advisories are in place. They'll expire at 11 a.m. on Friday morning for the Flathead, Mission, Missoula, Bitterroot valleys. I'd expect anywhere from 1 to 3 inches. Got the extended, very active forecast coming up.
This weekend, Missoula law enforcement are tackling drunk driving. The Super Bowl is one of the most watched events of the year, and when it comes to Super Bowl parties, impaired driving always spikes during the Super Bowl, and law enforcement and traffic agencies are huddling to intercept impaired drivers. Law enforcement urging partygoers to go over their playbook beforehand and have a safe ride planned. We spoke with a traffic sergeant of the Missoula Police Department who says law enforcement is preparing for dealing with a surge of impaired drivers.
If you're an NFL fan, you plan your Super Bowl event for weeks. Let's plan to get home safe after whatever party we go to. You know, and we're going to have extra patrols out. There's going to be 2 or 3 extra police officers working on Sunday night, and their only task is going to be looking for impaired drivers. So, and not just us, the Highway Patrol and the Missoula County Sheriff's Department are probably both likely going to have extra people out working.
Missoula police urge people to have a game plan beforehand. Many safe ride options are available to those in Missoula, including Uber, Lyft, Green Taxi, Yellow Cab, and Home Free Missoula. Firefighters are known for checking their gear, but tomorrow night they'll be checking each other as Missoula area fire crews take to the ice for the annual Fire on Ice charity hockey game. This is the 6th year firefighters will lace up the skates to raise money for a variety of charities, including the Fired Up for Kids program, which helps burn victims trying to recover after house fires. This year the games are being moved to Friday night at the Glacier Ice Rink. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., Missoula firefighters Local 271 will take on the Missoula Wildland firefighters. Then at 7:30, the city firefighters face their colleagues from Missoula Rural Fire Local 2457. There's also going to be a silent auction with over 100 items, raffles, and a lot more, with all the proceeds going to charity.
It was once the stuff of science fiction, the mysteries hidden in our genes, those genes that could determine if we'll get cancer or dementia or even go blind someday. DNA tests that were thousands of dollars are now hundreds, and they're very easy to get. But can you trust the result of a DNA test you bought on the internet to answer serious health questions? I went on special assignment and got both sides of discount DNA. 16-year-old Kiana got an Ancestry DNA test for Christmas. She's curious about her heritage and genealogy to discover what branches are on her family tree.
I think I was most interested in my genealogy and what I could find in my heritage and my culture. Since I'm adopted, I don't know a lot about, what makes up me, so I want to figure that out and see where it will lead me.
A lot of people want that information. The genetic testing market is an $11 billion industry and growing.
It's time to provide your saliva sample.
And growing not just by the number of people eager to know where they came from, but by the kinds of tests now being offered.
Welcome to Color.
Color offers an at-home kit to screen for the BRCA gene mutation. That mutation puts a woman at a much higher chance of getting breast or ovarian cancer. Suddenly, a genetic test that once cost thousands of dollars is about $100, and you don't need an appointment.
But at this point, you can, run, 280 genes for a couple $100 and make a profit. The actual machinery now is so slick and cheap that you can do it. And that's what we're seeing with BRCA now.
A positive BRCA test can begin an avalanche of serious medical decisions, including preemptive mastectomies or hysterectomies. But should something that life-altering hinge on a kit you bought online rather than one arranged by your own doctor?
I think it's great that the tests can be offered at a more affordable price. I think empowering people to understand if they have a potentially hazardous gene and can be proactive in dealing with that is wonderful. I think you just have to make sure you pair the test results with appropriate counseling so that people can be guided through their response to any abnormal gene they might have.
A company called Myriad had the patent for the BRCA gene testing for years. They're the ones that did the research and development. When I took the test some 7 years ago, it was around $4,000. But the patent has since expired, so we are likely to see more direct-to-consumer products offered at a much lower price. And many focus on different kinds of genetic abnormalities that could cause us health problems down the road. And while that seems like valuable information, it worries Missoula's only certified genetic counselor, Marissa Russell.
It does concern me for a number of reasons. So a positive result, when you can just order a kit online, what are you going to do with those results? Where's your care team? So who are you going to confide in? Oh, your breast surgeon, if you want to have breast surgery. What about your options or your guidelines? Like, those need to be, addressed probably quickly.
Russell feels consumers need to know how the test was conducted, how many genes were screened, and what the results really mean to your long-term health.
But what about like a negative result? Those concern me more, just because a negative result is never a negative result. and especially from a company like a direct-to-consumer company, because that negative, you don't know the methodologies that are being used.
The FDA is still trying to sort out regulations in this growing market. Dr. Snyder believes this is all just the start of a new era in medicine, where we can finally look into the chromosomal crystal ball for just a few bucks.
I think it's a good segue to the broader discussion about doing this type of screening genetic testing. I mean, it's just, we're in a whole new era.
For Kiana, this DNA test will simply give her answers to her ancestry, but she too could someday take a test to reveal life-saving information that's buried in her DNA. Now, Color Genetics, if you bought that kit, it does offer counseling to go over the results of your test. But the bottom line from talking with the experts is take those results and talk about them with your own doctor. Your own personal history is a big part of the cancer question, and there are more than a dozen other genes that can cause breast cancer. And so these online tests could be just one part of a bigger picture about your health, but you do need to discuss with your doctor what you found out.
A lot to consider, and we're seeing this winter a lot of lawmakers are starting to wonder about the privacy of these tests. What happens to the data that's being collected? And that's kind of a new issue too.
That's right. There was a law passed around 2008 that protects discrimination based on the results of a BRCA test. That hasn't necessarily caught up with the rest of the diseases that could be screened, and that could eventually impact your insurance or even your life insurance type of thing. So they need to catch up with the technology, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, thanks, Jill, for the story. Good information there. Up next, Aaron back with a wet forecast and more on winter weather advisories.
And would you brave going down this zip line in the Middle East at nearly 100 miles an hour? We'll take a closer look still ahead here on KPAX.